All right, we are live. Welcome to our third monthly mindset reset. This week we have Chase Woods available here to speak with, ask some questions if you guys jump on and talk freely amongst ourselves. One thing we talk about inside this community a lot is surrounding ourselves with people who are committed to growth, discipline, and service. Chase embodies that mindset wholeheartedly. He's a man who truly lives the principles we talk about inside the community: discipline, growth, and personal responsibility. Chase is an active duty Army logistics officer, which we'll talk about that, entrepreneur, father, competitive fitness athlete, and content creator. Uh, it's a mouthful there. He joined the military in 2020 after earning his degree in sports medicine from Northern Michigan University and is an alumni of the Army Officer Candidate School. Chase is also the host of the Super Bros podcast, which we'll talk about a little bit as well, a show designed to help young men and women become the best version of themselves through unique conversations with subject matter experts. Chase, welcome aboard, buddy. I appreciate you coming on. It's been a while since we've touched base. Chase and I met several years back, maybe 5-10 years ago, I would say, at CrossFit Petoskey. He's, young guy came in, young buck came in, tried to prove us old people wrong and show us his business, and he came through pretty good. So, how you doing, buddy?
I'm good, Yuli. I appreciate you bringing me on, man. That was definitely a mouthful for the intro, but I appreciate it nonetheless. Yeah, I mean, you and I, we met probably back in 2017 or summer of 2016 and just started working out together a lot. We'd see each other. I was coaching for a little bit at CrossFit Petoskey too, so it was a good environment to be part of.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. Come a long way at Petoskey. That membership has grown quite a bit, and yeah, people want me to say hello to you. So if they jump on, they jump
Oh,
on. If
cool.
not, they want me to say hi. I know a lot of them
Yeah.
have reached out.
Yeah, I miss all you guys, man. It's whenever I'm back in Michigan, I always try to go back to the gym just to say hi, if nothing else. So it's cool to see how Kenny's grown it.
Yeah, yeah, he's done a nice job. He's got some good coaches in there and some great members. And obviously it's the open season right now, so we're all just struggling and stressing. Have you got a chance to look at any of those workouts? Are you doing the CrossFit still, or?
I saw 26.1 and that looked absolutely awful on the legs. So definitely decided not to do that. And then 26.2, I don't know what it is. I just saw it was lunges and snatches and some muscle ups. So I'm not really doing the open right now. I haven't done CrossFit as my main training style in probably close to three years now. Been kind of focusing more on like job specific training styles, job specific fitness needs. More endurance based, but still functional. So a lot of like just strength training and then endurance mixed in. I would call that maybe more of a hybrid approach. Basically what
Oh,
CrossFit
cool.
is without it being CrossFit.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah,
lot
just
more running.
using all the modalities on your own. I mean,
Right.
it's a great modality. It's a great way to get fit, and if you can pull those exercises out and do your own thing, I mean, shit, I
Yeah.
would do that all the
Yeah.
time.
I've
That's
found
good.
that by virtue of just focusing on, like, what I suck at the most, I've actually gotten better at CrossFit. I had a probably a year, like, a full year where I just focused on my running and then came back to one of the local affiliates here, and first thing that we had was, of course, it was a running workout, so everybody's dreading that, but it was like, "Oh, this isn't that bad." I can do some heavy deadlifts and run at the same time, and I don't feel gassed, but I'm still strong, so it's definitely beneficial.
Yeah, running is not my jam. You're training for a marathon right now, or a half marathon, or?
Yeah, so I have a half marathon on Saturday this week.
Oh,
I've been prepping for about 16 weeks. So I wanted to do something a little bit out of my comfort zone back in October is when I decided to really kind of narrow my sights in on a race, and then just was kind of looking around. I saw one in Nashville. So was like, haven't done a marathon before. Probably not ready for that yet. If we're being honest. So half marathon it was. It's been humbling for sure to train up for that, but we're
well, they say if you
excited.
could do a half marathon, you could do a full marathon.
Yeah,
I
it's
don't know who
definitely a
says
mental
that.
test. Yeah, I don't know who says that. I think it's if you can do a half marathon, you can do 100 miles or something, some silly.
Yeah, yeah. Go far as you can. I got a 100-mile mountain bike race in June that
Oh,
hopefully the
nice.
snow melted. I can start training for. Yeah, I've done it a
Where's that
couple
at?
times, but this is in Manistee, Michigan. So
Okay.
the Big M course down there in Manistee. It's like a 34-mile lap, and just do 3 laps.
Yeah.
It was pretty brutal. Takes about 8 hours. Well, it'll take maybe between 8 and 9 hours to finish. My
Wow.
fastest time I think was just over 8. My slowest time was almost 11 hours.
Man, you
Yeah,
probably have to have
big.
some serious fuel for that too.
You have to kind of be comfortable being uncomfortable for a long period of time.
Yeah.
Boredom sets in. You start, you know, just thinking everything. I mean, you have 8, 9 hours to just think. So
Yeah.
no, no headphones, no music. It's just you and your brain for 8 hours, and hopefully you get to ride with a couple people that you know that you can chat with back and forth. Uh, but yeah, it's quite the head game for a while.
Yeah, I
So
bet.
you're active in the army now, huh? How long you been in the army now?
Coming up on 6 years in August, so
Holy cow!
it's flown by. I remember when I did my farewell workout with you guys, it was 21 Heroes. It was like, probably July, end of July, and then I shipped out in August of
Yeah,
2020. Um, but yeah, it's flown by. I feel like I'm gonna be at 10 years here super soon, so it's crazy. You blink and it's almost over.
yeah. So you're thinking career, huh? That's where you're at.
I'm not married to any specific idea right now. I think so for officers, it's a little different. You have your initial obligation. So for me, it was 3.5 years being an officer candidate, and then when you commission, you finish the rest of your obligation, and then once you finish that, you can do year to year. So I came up on my obligation fulfillment like end of 2023, and then the rest has just been voluntary. So I can choose to be done whenever I want. It just has to kind of get blessed off on and then sent through the different approval processes. But right now, I'll do probably year to year, figuring, if I have good assignments, if I enjoy what I'm doing, that's a reason to stay in. If it gives my family some stability, that's another reason to stay in. But there's so many different career paths out there that everybody can take advantage of. So I'm not sold on one path specifically. Um, but I think it's just whatever makes the most sense right now.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. As an enlisted, obviously, I was in the Marine Corps, and as enlisted, you had to reenlist for 4. It wouldn't give you
Right.
the oh, you just want to do another year? Sure. It was if you wanted to deploy again, it was another 4-year commitment. So
Yeah.
yeah, when I got
They
out, it
rope
was
you
we
into
were
it.
about to deploy again, and they, you know, I was like, I can't. I don't want to do another 4. I would have,
Yeah.
but at the time, I just wasn't in that headspace.
Yeah.
One
Where
deployment was
where would
enough.
you have gone? Where would you have gone had you stayed in?
We would have went back to the Middle East. We would have went back
Gotcha.
to Iraq. I think at the time, yeah, uh, we were still occupying Iraq, Baghdad, Kuwait, in that area, in that theater. So I would have went back there. I think my unit deployed. I got out in August, and my unit deployed back out September, October.
Gotcha.
So,
Yeah, I think
and
the
they've been
year to
going back
year
and forth
thing
ever
is.
since.
Oh, I got you. Yeah, I think the year to year thing is just kind of it's almost like an incentive to stay in because it's kind of assumed that if you're an officer, you're going to stay in, but they want to uh, they want to make it as easy as possible to transition out. So, if you feel like you're in your final year, typically they say plan 6 months to a year out to separate. And then there's, systems in place to help people find jobs, do, a career skills program so that they can kind of continue getting paid, but they can do a different job if they want to. And then that helps them kind of smoothly transition out of uniform. So,
Yeah, yeah, it's a good policy. And plus,
absolutely.
officers, they're it's probably what one officer to every 100 enlisted men or women. So
Yeah. Yep.
give them some more variable options, and then that keeps them around a little longer.
Definitely.
You went to school for sports medicine. Was there a specific moment or influence that kind of took you from, CrossFit coach slash college student, sports medicine, Army? Was there any specific path or any inspiration that got you in that kept you moving in that direction?
Yeah, so I originally I think it's tough for any, like, 17-year-old to know what they wanna do when they get out of high school, but I was one of the youngest kids in my class when I graduated, so, I knew that at the time I wanted to be a strength and conditioning coach for, like, a college football team or an NFL football team, so I wanted to get a degree that had the most amount of, um, I guess, skills associated with it, so I knew I didn't wanna go to medical school, so I went to Northern Michigan University. I did their athletic training program, and for anyone that doesn't know, athletic trainers are essentially like the first responders of the sports world. So, we do all of the, sideline management, injury prevention, injury response, rehab, prehab. We can diagnose injuries. We can't necessarily diagnose like medical conditions, but we do work hand in hand with team physicians. So we're able to do like very, very minor interventions when it comes to like wound care, skin diseases, things of that matter. Just like all of the things that you would see when you are watching a football game and you see an athlete go down, all of the care that goes into those athletes is what the athletic trainers do. So I kind of fell into that program, got accepted, did 4 years, and in my 4th year, it became a master's program, so they kinda screwed us a little bit as students, but that was just the way that the market was trending. So most of the schools that had those accreditations were going to a master's program. And so I was in a little bit of a crisis my senior year. Um, I had kind of walked away from playing football. I was enjoying CrossFit. I really liked competing in CrossFit, and that was what I, thought I wanted to do professionally. Which it's super hard to be a professional athlete in any sport.
Hmm.
Um, so I was kind of trying to shape my environment to meet those desires. I couldn't really figure out if I wanted to get my master's degree, if I wanted to go to PT school, or if I wanted to go to chiropractic school. I just wanted to do something that would support the lifestyle I wanted, while I tried to be a pro CrossFitter, right? Um, so I saw the amount of prereqs that I needed to get still, even with my degree, and I was like, "This is a very big hill to climb." I had my bachelor's degree, but I was still gonna have to go to school if I wanted to get accepted to another program. So, talked with my parents a little bit about it, and I was like, "Hey, I would like to go to grad school, but I don't really have the money to pay for it. Should I join the National Guard?" And my dad kinda stepped in. Yeah, yeah, right? 'Cause I was like, "They'll pay for my student loans, blah, blah, blah." I didn't know anything about the military. My dad was in the military, but he never really talked about it. So I, uh, I was talking to him about National Guard, and then he stepped in and was like, "No, you should go active duty. You should be an officer because you have your college degree. They'll generally treat you a little bit better, and you'll be paid, like, you'll have money." So that was the motivation there, and then I found out that the Army had kinda like a recruiting program shaped as a CrossFit team that they're still around today. It's the US Army Warrior Fitness Team, and
It's
they have their
Chandler Smith
online.
is on that team. Is that
He
the?
was for a while. He
Oh,
actually
okay.
got out. He got out at around 8 years of service, so he's
Okay.
currently doing his own thing, but yeah, that was initially how I saw it was through Chandler Smith, and following him, and I was like, "That's what I wanna do." Like, if I'm gonna join the military, I'm
Yeah.
gonna get paid to be a CrossFit athlete, and I don't care what anyone says, like, I'm doing it, and so I went to the recruiting office with my dad. We talked about an OCS contract. I had to go through that process of processing through MEPS, getting rejected by MEPS for a dumb reason, having to go back through, getting, allowed to join the military. And then I went through an OCS board, got selected to attend OCS, and then I went to basic training 9 months after that.
In OCS, where'd you go to OCS school or OCS?
So, officer candidate school is at Fort Benning, Georgia. Everyone typically, if you're like an officer candidate contract or an '09 Sierra, you'll go to Fort Jackson for basic training, or one of the other, you know, standard basic training installations like Fort Sill. I don't really think people go to like Fort Benning. That's usually where they do OSIT at, or the infantry basic training. But generally, you're an officer candidate, so you're kind of a blank slate. Most of us went to Fort Jackson, and then immediately after that, we PCSed to Fort Benning, and we started class to do our officer candidate school.
Awesome.
Yep.
That's a good segue into my next question, which is a little bit about your experience at OCS and obviously training in the Army. Um, so, Officer Candidate School and Military Boot Camp Basic Training for All Services is known for testing people mentally and physically. What was one moment, if you can recall, during your training in that process that you realized that you had to level up mentally to succeed? You couldn't any longer just rely on your physical strength and your cardio. You had to really step it up mentally. Your game had to change a little bit.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So basic training as a whole is just designed to kind of tear you down and build you back up into a compliant soldier. So somebody who is not about you are about we as the collective. So I think one of the first moments I realized I was going to have to level up was literally the first day that I got to Fort Jackson. Like I said, I didn't know anything about the army. I didn't know anything about the military. I just knew that the drill sergeants were to be feared, and that was that. So we were all there, you know, lined up, standing at attention on day 0, kind of our in processing day. And I'm still friends with him to this day. Our senior drill sergeant Ole, he came up to me and just whispered in my ear. He's like, "You're going to be in charge of all these kids, so like, just do everything that I tell you to do, and you'll be fine." And I was so nervous because I was like, "Fuck, man! Like, I I don't want to let this guy down. He might like beat my ass or something." Um, but yeah, I got put in charge right away, so I think that helped me a lot. But there's a lot of moments where it's just really difficult. You know, you get injured, or you miss your family, you go without sleep, you go without food. Everything is designed to make you uncomfortable, so you really have to kind of take a step outside of yourself and just center into whatever makes you comfortable in your own mind.
Yeah, that's awesome. The experience was very similar for me going through Marine Corps boot camp in Paris Island. A lot of people. I was a 17-year-old kid when I first, I stepped on those yellow
Yeah.
footprints at 17 years old. So
Mhm.
everyone's like, "Oh, it must be so physically hard. You got to do it." At 17, 80% of us in there are fit enough. I mean, we're athletes. We're played sports in high school or something. There's a handful that aren't, that are just in there to get in shape. But they don't cycle through. They get cycled through PCP. They called it pork chop platoon, where if you either got injured or you got if you weren't able to keep up. But for the most part, the physical side of it, you keep up with the slowest man. And that, like you
Yeah.
said, that teaches you that, that it's not me anymore, it's us. If you can't bring that slowest man with you, you better go back and get them. So that was
Right.
kind of that was the mentality there. So the mindset was more of the real game was the head games that they played with you. It was constant. It was just just games. The motto of the Marine Corps is Semper Fi. We used to say Semper Gumby because you had to be
Yeah.
flexible because it was always games, constantly games to play with you. And for me, it was like once the drill instructors realized, you guys call them drill sergeants, we call them drill instructors. There's a little
Mhm.
language difference there. Once they realized that they couldn't get to me mentally, like they couldn't fuck with me anymore. That's when things changed for me. They were like, "All right, this guy means business. Let's put him in some sort of leadership role." I never made it to the guide, which is like the number one the guy, but I did make it the squad leader. Sparks, we had a guy named Sparks. He was untouchable, man. This guy was a beast. I think he was from Kentucky or Tennessee, but he was just a machine. And
Yeah.
so I got put in as a squad leader, and from that point on, that was kind of where I realized that it was had nothing to do with physical ability. They'll teach you that they can teach you, that they can train into you.
Yeah.
But yeah, the head was where it was all going to go. Another question I had down here is, what do you think separates people who succeed in a demanding environment like the military or competitive fitness from those who are set up to work with their mindset, or who just tend to quit easily? Like if somebody just quits easily in OCS school, what do they, what do they do to them? Do they try to hang on to them, or do they just boot them out?
Yeah, it's kind of weird. So for the candidates, like the officer candidates who have never done any prior service, they typically try to hang on to those folks, because if they do get booted, like truly, if they fail and they just are not teachable, they become needs of the army. So you go from being a candidate to whatever your lowest previous rank was. So for us, it was like an E4 or a specialist. So I had heard of people getting kicked out before and becoming needs of the army, but it was very rare for like those of us who hadn't been prior service. But for the guys who are coming in as like staff sergeants or E7s, they typically just went back to their units. Um, but yeah, I think the thing that separates people from the people who quit the easiest is just having a strong enough desire to do something. So one thing I've talked with a lot of people about is like, what is the reason that you want to do the thing that you want to do? Like, if you can, if you can focus in on your why, then it makes all of your decisions that much easier because you're making a deliberate decision every time you choose to go in the right direction or the wrong direction. That's kind of how it is in life in general. Like if you don't have a strong enough reason for why you want to go to the gym, then you're probably going to skip out on the gym. That's just how human nature is because we want to avoid uncomfortable things. But I think if you can have like a strong reason, like, hey, I want to be healthy for my children. I want to live longer. I want to look better. I want to feel happier or just be a happier person in general. Like that will remind you when those days where you don't want to go to the gym, that it'll remind you and it'll help get you, one step further, one foot in front of the other.
Yeah, that why is super important. It's the reason why you're doing things, honestly. And if you dig deep enough, and I have one of the segments inside my program is how to find your why, and it's you got to ask yourself 5 times. They say ask 5 times why. So your first why is like, oh, I want to be in shape. Well, why? Then you have
Mhm.
another answer, and it's I want to be in shape so I can hang out with my kids. But why? And then finally, at some point, you're going to get to that deeper level understanding of what your reason is for doing what you're doing, and that's gonna 9 times out of 10 is what you're going to focus on to keep you level headed and back on track. So, yeah,
Yeah,
motivation fades
absolutely.
out, right? I talk about that a lot. We talk about that a lot. Is motivation is just that little spark, but that discipline and that process and that system that you have in place. Once you develop that crucial understanding of your why and your values and your core values, then those are the things that'll keep you on track.
100%.
Which is,
100%.
yeah, it's awesome. Speaking of why, I don't know if you don't want to talk about this, we can go in a different direction. But we talked a little bit about it when we were texting back and forth about selections, and you said that was a tough pill for you to swallow. Do you want to talk about that a little bit? It's kind of puts us in that why mode a little bit of something you
Sure.
were going after and got derailed for whatever reason. If you're interested in talking about that, I'd love to hear about it.
Yeah. So this is the first time I've really talked about it publicly. But back in September of 2025, I went to Special Forces Assessment and Selection. So, for anyone that's not familiar, that is the basically the starting point for um, your assessment to become a Green Beret, and that's the Army's equivalent of Special Forces. It's the gold standard for Special Forces. It's a lot of what other countries base their special operations off of today. So I had initially when I entered the Army, I didn't have any desire to do anything like combat related or I guess difficult to that level. And then as you kind of go throughout your career, you start to realize like, okay, I'm not really in love with the conventional military. There are some things that I don't like about it. and special operations. It sounded very appealing. So I, decided to start looking into that route a little bit. In special forces, they have quite a few different mission sets, but their biggest mission set is unconventional warfare. So their primary mission is to go over into contested environments, make friends with the partner forces over there, and then they become force multipliers through virtue of training them. So essentially think of, if you can teach somebody how to do infantry tactics, then it makes them that much more useful, and you don't have to pull from your own resources in order to be
Hmm.
effective overseas and fight wars. So
Yeah,
that
let them
was
put.
uh, that was something that I was very interested in, and I decided to go to that selection. So I had quite a few different things that were stacked against me going into that. I had come off of a recent deployment and I blew out my knee. So had a 9-month rehab process that set me back to basically ground zero. So I was essentially not able to run or do anything related to endurance training. And for anyone that is familiar with the selection process, that's really what they look for, is a lot of endurance and then overall load carrying strength. So I had to kind of humble myself and admit that it was going to be really, really hard to come out of that deficit, but I, dedicated about 2.5 years to getting better, just specifically at running, rucking, maintaining the strength that I'd already built through a lifetime of powerlifting and football, and CrossFit as well. So strength wasn't really the thing I needed to work on. It was mostly my endurance. And I ended up taking all my times down from very, very slow to very, very fast, thankfully. So as I was going into selection, I was basically peaking, and I was able to really drop those times down to what was desirable for the cadre to kind of look for. And I didn't really know a ton about what the instructors were looking for, but there were some published standards out there that were pretty common knowledge. So I was as prepared as I possibly could be physically and mentally. I went in with a good mindset. I was obviously pretty nervous, but just took each day as it came, and ultimately, just my run and ruck times were not fast enough compared to the other officer candidates that I assessed against. We had 45 other officers, including myself, that were at that selection, and then there was 400 total soldiers there. So a very big class,
Wow.
very very fit people, very competitive. We had all kinds of people from different backgrounds, former NFL players, former bodybuilders, professional UFC fighters, like just a bunch of studs. And it was an honor to go through that process. But um, you know, when you get cut from something like that, it's disappointing because for me, I just realized that I wasn't going to have some shared experiences with some of my best friends that have made it through successfully, and they're going to go on this journey. They're probably going to have really interesting and fun careers in their own regard, and that was the most disappointing part. But I knew that my preparation was as best as it possibly could be, so contrary to what people might think, I actually had a big sense of peace when my roster number got called and I got dropped.
Yeah, so that's a crazy story. That's a lot of people to compete against. What,
Yeah.
440 people that and some of them already probably had combat experience. A lot of them probably were infantry who already
Yeah.
had that base going. So
Right.
you did have a lot of things stacked up against you. But to get in there and just give it a shot, that takes a lot of will and that takes a lot of passion. That takes a lot of effort. And one of the things I talk about a lot is effort. It's like you can control the amount of effort and time you put into something, but you can't control the outcome. So that outcome is completely out of your hands, completely out of your control. But the effort that you put into it was probably the part that gave you the most peace. Like, hey, I gave it my. If you went in there half-assed, then you would probably wouldn't have gotten that piece out of there. You would have been like, I could have done better, and then you would have blamed other things. But knowing that you went in there as hard as you could, 2 years of training plus rehabbing your knee, that probably gave you a little bit of sense of that effort or that sense of peace that you talk about not not being selected.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that that's ultimately what I was chasing, because, throughout my entire career, like, people who are not in the military probably won't understand this, but the military in general, whether you're in the Army or the Marines or whatever other branch you decide to be in, the cool moments are very short and very fleeting sometimes. There's a lot of in between where, you kind of just have to do your job, you have to put your nose to the grindstone. So, I was looking for a goal and a purpose that I could 100% commit myself to. And, just by virtue of committing to that process of getting ready for that selection, I became a better person. And that was what I had looked for a long time. Like, my life has been a series of very unique and specific goals, and the preparation that goes along with those goals, and whether or not I achieve them. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't, but it's very formative to who I am, and it's always going to be a part of me. I learned some really cool things being there. I made some great friends. I realized that the experiences that you have in this career can ultimately help you out a ton with things like that. So I realized the value in maybe going to some other schools that are available as part of the Army career. So just different opportunities that I can still take advantage of to become a better person. I got my eyes open to it, and I just realized that there's so much more that I can work on as a person to get better. And I realized that this isn't one of those careers where it's like a professional athlete's season, right? Like, I can't approach the Army as if I'm playing an NFL game. I can't peak for that NFL season or that one track meet or whatever it is. Like, the unique thing about being a tactical athlete is you have to be able to perform over and over and over again at your best within a certain spectrum, no matter what the conditions are. So my eyes got open to that, and I'm excited to continue to be able to work on that and just become a better version of myself.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's the goal, right? Is become a better person of your, become a better version of yourself, and just keep that ball rolling. I had a
Absolutely.
similar experience in the military, in the Marine Corps. I was infantry. I was a machine gunner, so I had that infantry background. I had that training for years, and then a few of my best friends in the military uh, all decided to go to Force Recon and
Mhm.
do the indoctrination test. And I went through it with them. And I remember sitting in front of my CO, or the CO of the Special Forces, Special Operations, and he said, I don't even know if they had sticky notes back then, but it was this big note on my service record book on my SRB that said, eyesight bad, no go. So
Oh,
I
man.
I had no control over why I wasn't selected. So, but my
Right,
other three friends got to deploy, and they got to go into Force Recon. They got to have that experience, like you said. So
right.
they left my unit and went on their own and got to do this fun things and stuff. And luckily, they're all still here, and I still get to communicate with them. But they got to do some
Yeah,
really bad shit, and they got to really do some really fun shit that I just didn't get part of. So that was a heartbreaker for me. I lost some of
yeah,
my best friends um, as they moved on to bigger and better things, and I was just
yeah.
stuck as a regular old machine gunner. Damn it.
Yeah, I think, it's funny how many people you realize have been through something similar after you've come up on a failure,
Right.
'cause, immediately when I came back to my unit, I was like, I didn't make it, and there was this whole whirlwind of stuff that happened that, I'm sure you and I can get into offline, but that was a difficult time, but I met a lot of people that had similar experiences, and for whatever reason, they just didn't make it. So it's kind of relieving to know that it's one of those things where life just has a way of working out for you, whether or not um, that's due to a higher power or their intent for your life. But I think anybody who is able-bodied, who has the commitment and the drive to go and do something that difficult and to try to make it, can make it, but
Yeah.
sometimes it's just not their day. There's guys who I'm friends with right now that you would think would be a shoo-in for something like that, and they didn't make it for whatever reason, it just wasn't their time, but then other guys did, so, um, you can feel lost and you can feel like your purpose kinda got pulled out from under you for a little while, but, I do believe that God has a plan for my life. I believe he's pointing me in the right direction, and I feel positive about where it's going.
Yeah, I'm a big believer is you are exactly where you're supposed to be. So,
100%.
you know, and they don't call it special forces because everybody gets in. The
It's
number of people that didn't get
it's
in
special, that's why.
is way larger. For the people that did get in, they don't call it like everybody forces. They call it special forces for a reason. These
Absolutely.
men and women are very special, and it's not your everyday Marine, soldier, sailor, anybody that's just going to get into the special forces division. It's you're going to have to get there, and getting in isn't even the hard. That's the easy part. Now you got to
Yeah,
go through it, and then you have to perform. So that's
yeah, of
awesome. Well, I appreciate you sharing that story. I'm glad that it was here where you decided to go public with that, and I'm glad you
course.
were able to recover from that and get a better understanding of who you are from that whole thing. Um, I know we're running short on time, but one thing I want to get to is your podcast. I kind of want to understand, the message that you're leaning into during your podcast. How people can find your podcast, and then we'll kind of wrap it up with that if you got a couple more minutes for that.
Yeah, I've got plenty of time, man. So, if you want to keep going, that's perfectly fine. But yeah, so this was before all the riffraff of the last couple years, but in 2023 started the Super Bros podcast with a roommate of mine. Eventually they moved on to other things, but the intent behind it was, hey, what are some things that maybe our mom and dads did not teach us as we were growing up that we would like to have known when we were kids. So we talked about a bunch of different topics, and we just had talked about it for so long that we're like, what, let's start a podcast and let's call it the Super Bros podcast because you know what, we're gonna be here for the bros. We're gonna provide good knowledge. We're gonna provide quality guests as often as we can who have different career paths and we want to teach people about what their options are so that maybe they don't have to make the same mistakes that we made growing up. Whatever the guests can offer as insight or advice on how they got to where they are, that's typically what I tend to lean into. And I just love to hear about people's timelines too, because I've had professional athletes, I've had multimillionaires on the podcast, I've had people that have significant amounts of influence, and I think that that's knowledge that should be tapped into, especially for people who come from smaller, maybe more impoverished areas like northern Michigan, where I grew up, that could benefit from it. There's a lot of people that just don't know what's available to them. So I want to be able to provide that, even if it's in a small podcast. So,
So what do you from speaking to some of these people and understanding kind of not so much your guests but your audience, what are some things that you've noticed, um, that you've learned that would be a great message to teach people that aren't doing specifically things that, I mean, our generations are different. I grew up in a completely different environment. So what are you learning that most people are missing these days as far as opportunities or lessons that they might want to learn or should know at least?
yeah. So originally, I thought a lot about dating. Like, as funny as it sounds, like, and it was more geared towards the male gender for
Because
a
it's
little
not
bit.
easy.
No, dude, I'm telling you, like, I didn't know anything about how to approach women, date women. I learned a lot through trial and error, and I feel like I've been pretty damn successful with it. But um,
Well, you're
that
married
was
with
the
a kid
that
now,
was
so
yeah, I'm doing all right. She
yeah,
she seems
you've
to
made
like
it.
me. Yeah, she
Yeah.
seems to like me. Um, but that was the original intent was like, hey, what can I teach a younger version of myself about like developing confidence with women or with jobs or with like how do I approach difficult situations because no one really prepares you for that because the generation that raised me maybe didn't like to talk about that type of stuff or they didn't know how to articulate it. So there was just a knowledge gap, and the biggest thing that I would say is the confidence is missing because people are afraid to take an uncomfortable step. So I see a lot of people who, talk about wanting to leave an uncomfortable situation, but they're afraid to leave it all behind because they don't know what's going to happen. And like, if I had never left my situation, leaving Michigan, if I had never joined the military, and if I had never taken that uncomfortable step or that scary jump into the unknown, I would probably still be living with my parents, or I'd probably still be doing something that I didn't want to do. And there's just so much more upside to going out and failing than there is to always staying comfortable. So I would say that confidence is built through repetition, and that's the only way to gain experience, and that experience will help you more and more and more. And you're not a failure until you refuse to learn from those mistakes you make.
Yeah, it's crazy how discomfort is so comfortable for people if it's familiar,
Right.
but discomfort in an unfamiliar stage is undoable. So for me, you got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And there's some people that are uncomfortable, but they're in a familiar position. So they're like, well, I'd rather be stuck in this shitty situation because I'm comfortable with it instead
Right.
of getting to that next step or moving, like, you starting your podcast or me starting this channel or whatever it is. Not everything that's going to make you grow. I mean, discomfort isn't a stop sign. I just did a video that it's not a stop sign. Discomfort is just a signal that you're about to grow, that something is about to happen that's going to make you grow a little bit. So
Yeah.
just like fear and any of that stuff, it's not a stop sign. They're just red flags. They're just signals, but you got to push through them, or else you're going to be stuck in the same place forever. So
100%, brother.
yeah. So what advice would you give to somebody who feels stuck in that situation and they want to start building momentum again and just to get out of that zone of just despair that they're in?
Yeah, so, if you're feeling stuck, I would first kind of examine what it is that you're interested in, because I think a lot of people that feel that sense of despair or anxiety, it's just anxiety is the result of energy that's not being directed in a positive way. Like, if you are constantly inside, you're not active, you're always thinking about, what I could be doing or what I should be doing, but you're still just settling for the comfortable environment that you're in, of course you're going to have anxiety. So start off by writing a list of things that you're interested in, and then kind of start learning as much as you can. Learn about, you know, how to get better at those things, how to get into rooms with people that know more about you than those things. Networking is huge. And then ultimately, how can you make money from it? Because if you learn how to make money from something that you enjoy doing, then you won't be working. You'll be living your life to the fullest, right? Um, so I think just not being afraid to ask difficult questions, learning as much as you can, and then trying to figure out how to positively direct your energy is the biggest thing. Um, for me, my very first interest was just being in better shape. Like, I was a pretty young kid when I started working out. I was 14 years old, and I told my dad I had a dream of playing college football, and he believed in me. He's the first person that told me I could do it. But I had to be disciplined. I had to be dedicated to my craft. So we got in the gym. We started working really hard, and the rest is history. But I would have never been able to take that step if I hadn't just directed my energy in a positive direction.
Yeah, focus, man. I love
Uh,
lists too. That's a great idea. Put everything down on paper. I'm such a list guy, dude.
yeah,
I put everything in
yeah.
lists and then scratch them off one by one.
100%.
Well, that's so cool, man. I appreciate you being on the show. I appreciate everything you're doing. Thank you for your service, obviously.
Thank
I
you for
definitely
yours.
think I want to do this again someday for sure.
Yeah.
I'm going to run through a couple quick lightning round questions just for fun. I talk a lot about the difference between discipline and motivation on my channel. Are you a discipline guy or a motivation guy?
I'm a disciplined guy because motivation is just, it's an emotional state of being. if you're disciplined and you have the ability to develop those habits over time, like, is this going to get me closer to my goal? Yes or no? Let's take the yes option, or let's take the no option. You know, like, just being able to make those choices day in and day out is what's going to get you closer to your goals.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat, man. Yeah, motivation fades quickly. Discipline is going to keep. It's going to get you there anyway. Sick,
For sure.
cold, dark. Like right now, it's still daylight out for the first time because of daylight savings. But it's
Yep.
it's dark when I go to the gym in the morning. It's dark when I getting out of work. Everything is always dark and cold. But if I let that emotion take over every time, I wouldn't do shit. I would just sit in my bed all day.
Yep.
So you got to have
Me too.
structure. You have to have a plan.
100%. 100%.
uh, Favorite book or on mindset or leadership, or anybody in particular that you like to listen to or follow as far as mindset and leadership go?
Yeah, so my favorite book, I don't think I've really shared this anywhere actually, but it's called Into the Magic Shop, and I can't remember the author's name right now, but he if I remember it, I'll let you know, Yuli, and then you could share it to your
I'll look it
followers.
up. Yeah,
But it's called Into the Magic Shop, and it's written by a neurosurgeon. He's a very successful neurosurgeon, but when he was a little boy, he grew up in poverty, and he was just kind of in one of those situations where he didn't know how to escape. And one day he goes into a magic shop looking for, something to help with one of his tricks, and the woman who was working at the magic shop, she teaches him all about meditation and how meditation can ultimately contribute to you getting whatever it is that you want in your life. So being able to tap into your mind and then your heart as one, and then the giving nature of the heart, it can allow you to be ultra successful. So that's probably the best book I've ever read about the law of attraction and mindset.
right on.
And then as far as people that I like to listen to or latch on to, I really enjoy Nick Bear's stuff. He's been a great kind of mentor in the space. I've always loved watching his YouTube videos. He's got a great podcast, the Nick Bear podcast. Um,
I don't know his
yeah,
stuff. I'll have to look him up.
yeah, he's a good dude.
Awesome. Awesome, awesome. And then last, one habit every person you think should build, young, old, anybody who's struggling or successful, just that one habit that everybody should focus on and try to master.
I think you should always get the hardest part of the day out of the way first. So in the military, I know it's a little cliche, but we do PT early in the morning most of the time. And truly, like, there's no better cheat code than going into the gym early in the morning, getting it out of the way, because you've already been through the hardest part of your day at that point. Whether or not you go to work and somebody says something you don't like, or, something doesn't go your way, you've still already worked out that day. You're feeling good. You feel more in control of your day. Your body feels more relaxed throughout the day. And, like, ultimately, those difficult things that stress all of us out, they don't really matter after you've already done a really gnarly CrossFit workout, like 26.1 or something like that. So
Yeah.
get it out of the way in the morning. That's my best advice. Best habit you can make.
Yeah. Eat the frog first. And then, ironically enough, for me, that was the biggest struggle. Is I used to work out in the afternoon, but I'm like, I'm going to start doing it in the morning, start working on in the morning. And then we started working out in the morning. And eventually it became the most fun part of my day. So
Yeah.
it went from being the hardest part of my day to the most fun part of my day. Still very hard, but it's still the most fun part of my day. And I look forward to it every morning. I don't care. I get up at 5:30 and I get to the gym by 6:45. And
Mhm.
that's just, I love the people there. I love going there. I love the work there. And then I don't want to leave. I'm like, I got to work now. So I should go do that. But
Yeah, if you can set up whatever program you're on to be, you wanna make it something you look forward to, because it makes it that much easier to
yeah.
get up, you know? I agree.
Yeah, that's the whole bottom line to that. If you're not enjoying it, you're doing the wrong thing. So just do something you enjoy. Make sure that you're finding passion in what you're doing.
Yes, sir.
Hey man, this has been a lot of fun. Where can I send people? I'm going to put all these things down in the show notes down below. But where can I send people to find your podcast, your website, your Instagrams, your socials?
Yeah, so things are coming back slowly but surely. I shut down all of my stuff prior to selection, but Instagram is at I am Chase Woods. It's all lowercase. Um, it's also my handle on YouTube. As far as the podcast goes, it's at the Super Bros Podcast on Instagram as well, and then on YouTube, it's the Super Bros Podcast. So nothing too crazy right now. Those are the spots where you can find us. I'm always posting videos. I'm starting to post more content about the
Yeah, I
podcast
see
because we
that, man. You're
recently
killing it.
I
You're
appreciate it.
killing
We
it.
came back
It's
after
awesome.
about
Good
a
stuff.
year of not doing anything. So, we're on the come up and we're just going to try to be consistent with it.
That's cool. If you have one last message to share with the world, what would it be?
Jesus loves you.
He
That's
does,
it.
doesn't he?
He does.
Good deal. Awesome. Well, buddy, I appreciate it. Thanks for your service. I know you're moving soon, so hopefully that all goes successful and you end up at your next duty station and you find the same success to you there. And I'd love to do this again if you got time when you get all settled in, and we'll figure it back out.
I appreciate Yuli. Yeah, let's go ahead and we'll run it back as soon as we're done moving and we get everything settled in.
Awesome, man. Next time you're in Michigan, stop by. Say hi to the kids.
Oh, I for sure will. I'll get a good
All right,
workout in
buddy.
with you guys.
Yeah, yeah. All right, man. Thanks. I appreciate it. Awesome.
All right, brother.
I'll
Take
talk to
care.
you
Thank
soon.
you. See ya.
Yep. Bye.